I might have cancer. Let's do the most difficult thing we could possibly do. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I remember that.
It's almost like I kind of shut down a little bit and went into survival mode like right away.
You're not somebody who's lived a full long life. You're not like 70 and they're telling you have cancer. You were in your
Right.
20s.
We all say, let's find a cure for cancer. And that's so general that you're not going to find one thing that cures all cancers.
Wait, hold on a second. What if cancer is the solution to eternal life?
And I could barely talk. So I'm shivering and mashing my mouth together. And you're over there like, is he dying? And time it just right so that they could harvest my stem cells, freeze them, and then kill me.
But you shouldn't lose hope. I think, yeah. Floyd says it best. Floyd says, keep fighting.
And fuck cancer.
Fuck you, cancer.
Welcome to another Kitchen Sink Microscopy. I'm Casey Rochford, and if you would please be so kind as to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, we would love you very much.
And I'm Eric Rosenblatt, and don't forget, we write our own music, so stick around to the end of the episode to hear a new song, and you can get it by going to patreon.com/ksmvidcast, and it'll support the show. We're probably not going to be monetized, so this is the only way we're going to get any kind of support. So, hey, I notice you've got some kind of medal or medallion or something. Is that connected to today's topic, perhaps?
It's just a bit of bling, No, it's I got this at a Relay for Life. Since I had lymphoma, I participated in a couple of those. They're basically like you can walk or jog or run or whatever you're comfortable with around a track. It's like 24 hours long or 48 hours long or something. It's a really cool event, raises money and stuff. And survivors just get this medal just for showing up and stuff. So,
oh, cool.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I haven't done it in a couple of years. I need to go back, but it was around the time that this episode's coming out, it was about 11 years ago that I got out of the hospital after my stem cell transplant. So I've been free and clear for 11 years now.
Oh man, it seriously just feels like not that long ago, just like yesterday. That's crazy.
Yeah, and it felt like it completely took away my 20s. I mean, even though it was really only like a few years that I was dealing with it, but like recovering and everything, it pretty much wiped out at least half of my 20s, or a little more than half. It was let's say a speed bump in my life.
Yeah, I remember that time because we were running a business together when that happened, and
yeah,
boy, that was a wild ride. Let me tell you that. I mean,
well, yeah, I remember that was funny too, because at the time I got married to my second wife, and we went on our honeymoon, and I got a cold, which was kind of weird because it was May.
Huh.
And come back, and then I had to work like 7 days a week at my job, like graveyard shift. And I ended up like wearing myself out and getting pneumonia. So I go, and I wake up one day and I have like this crazy chest pain. So I go to the emergency room. They take an X-ray, and there's a tumor in my chest somewhere, like in the mediastinum, it's called, like a space between the lungs, basically. And there's some stuff up there, like the thyroid and something called the thymus, which is where my tumor happened to be.
Damn.
And, they didn't know it was cancer, obviously, from an X-ray, but they were like, this, it could be a lymphoma or something. And, at the time I was like, is that like cancer? Like I wasn't totally sure.
It's an
I didn't.
OMA, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I didn't know back then, and
Well, you
and I
weren't a
didn't.
biologist, so
Right? Yeah, I didn't want it to be true either. So there's a little bit of that.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh,
But anyway, like it was right after that where I find out I might have cancer. I remember calling you on the phone to tell you about that. And then I was like, hey, we should start a business.
I might have cancer. Let's do the most difficult thing we could possibly do. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. I remember that. What I, for not everybody has dealt with that sort of situation. Obviously, what did that feel like when they told you that it could be cancer?
You know, I don't really remember. It's almost like I kind of shut down a little bit and went into survival mode like right away. Like, um, I just kind of kept going. It wasn't for another 8 months until I knew for sure that it was cancer. Like they were just kind of watching it and taking biopsies, which of course never gave any conclusive results. And so ultimately it was, like the Schrodinger's cat sort of thing. Like you
Mhm.
don't know if you're gonna die yet.
Oh God.
But it's like that possibility is lurking in the shadows. So it was on my mind, but I wasn't trying to let it like consume me too much. Um, and that's a constant battle even to this day, actually, because once you get cancer a couple times in a row, every little thing makes you go, oh shit. Uh, you know?
Yeah, and you went through treatment twice
Mm-hmm.
for that, as I recall. So
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah, like if you want to break it down, you could almost say I went through 3 treatments for 2 cancers. Um, because the second time around they did a stem cell transplant, but it was a phase 2 clinical trial. There was like 85 people in it, plus me, and it was a tandem stem cell transplant. So they did it twice in a row.
Hmm.
There was this hypothesis, I guess, that um, wiping out your immune system like mostly, and then rebooting it, and then immediately wiping it out completely would somehow like obliterate the cancer even better, like kill it and re-kill it.
What,
um,
what do you think about that idea now, knowing, with your education that you have at this point? Does that make sense?
um, I don't know. I don't know how someone thought of that, but it did work, and it worked quite well. Um,
Nice.
I mean, the only thing I can think is, I had a particular type of lymphoma that just didn't want to quit, because after I beat it the first time, it came back like less than 4 months later, I think.
Wow.
4 to 6 months later. So they were kind of like, well, we got to hit it pretty hard now. And I kind of wonder if just doing a regular old stem cell transplant maybe doesn't kill everything, and maybe it has a chance to proliferate again. Maybe that's I don't want to go through a regular stem cell transplant to see what they do, and so
So,
I'm just guessing.
so did you have Hodgkin's or non-Hodgkin's lymphoma?
Hodgkin's.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
What's actually the difference between the two?
It's
Because one I've heard is like really ominous. Like it's
non-Hodgkin's is a little worse.
okay.
If I remember correctly, it has something to do with the type of immune cells affected or the morphology or something. Um, having worked in ophthalmology and now plants and stuff, I'm a little out of the loop in that realm. But uh, it's enough of a difference that there's a pretty marked difference in your chances for survival. I mean, they're both pretty strong if you catch them early.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the worst cancer to have, as strange as that sounds. Like,
Well, and as we've discussed, offline, online, offline, I guess, cancers are different. Not every cancer is the same.
right? Yeah, and yeah, I think that's something that not a lot of people really grasp conceptually. Uh, we all say let's find a cure for cancer, and that's so general that you're not going to find one thing that cures all cancers. You're not very likely to, anyway. I
Yeah.
really doubt that something would actually do that, but just knowing what I know now. But anyway, uh, yeah, it was. So we decided to start a business right after finding out I might have cancer. This this was what, 2006.
Sick.
So
Yeah.
we like started a business like overnight, basically.
Oh yeah,
And then
totally. It was July 4th, I think, when we got together, and we
yeah.
we got the business license on the 5th,
Hmm.
and we each put in $500 to start a business. And this is not, this is a technical field that we were getting into, which a lot of people would say you should probably have $100,000 or something, and we just had started with $1,000. I think we did pretty well. We ran it for 6 years, so that's
Yeah.
it's not bad considering. And we didn't shut it down because we were failing. We shut it down because we just wanted to do other things. I think you wanted to go to school, and
Yeah.
I wanted to get out of IRS debt. Um, so yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, a couple months into running the business, I find out, well, I went in and had a major surgery to remove my thymus. They cracked my chest open and all that. And
Yeah.
uh, then I had to recover from that. And so while that was going on, um, I was like hobbling around my place because we moved the business to my garage, the shop off my garage, and I was just like hobbling around because I couldn't lift anything or sneeze or cough or anything because my chest would just split open or something.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
felt
we
like
should.
Ozzy Osbourne. I was like, oh, fucking Sharon.
Yeah, if you throw me a picture of you during that time, we'll put it up on the screen so people can see,
Yeah.
where you came from.
Yeah.
Because I remember that quite clearly. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was, man. And
But then uh yeah, that was like the first time I had cancer. It actually wasn't that bad. I never threw up.
hmm,
I didn't even lose all my hair. I shaved my head because it started kind of falling out a little bit, but it never really totally went away that time.
Uh,
And so, yeah, like that wasn't horrible. There was that one incident though where the power port that I had for infusing the chemo drugs that got infected. You remember that in the dead of summer in August or whatever? It was like super hot out, and all of a sudden I was like shivering in
oh
like
man.
90-degree weather.
Yeah, I remember that. You were like shaking and stuff. And man, I totally thought you were gonna die then. You probably could have actually.
Yeah, well, it
Oh.
was probably kind of dumb of me to run a business during the day, work a graveyard shift job, and get chemo.
That's pretty badass, I gotta say.
It was probably overdoing it just a smidge.
Just a bit, yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
like I was on this medication compazine, and it was,
I know that well. I
yeah.
say nothing about it though.
Well, it usually only does this to elderly people, but it did something called a dystonic reaction where my jaw would clamp shut violently, uncontrollably. Like I was smashing my teeth together and biting my tongue and stuff, and I could barely talk. So I'm shivering and mashing my mouth together, and you're over there like, is he dying?
I know. Oh man.
What did I do? Did I hand you my cell phone with the nurse's phone number or something?
I think so, yeah. Yeah. Because and I don't remember, but I thought they kind of acted like nothing was really wrong. Like, no, just give him some Tylenol or something, you
Well,
know? And
as
I'm like, this is serious. This is you know, this guy's dying here.
it worked, luckily. So
Yeah. Huh.
yeah, you saved me.
Mm, you owe me nothing.
Oh,
So man, that was nuts. Um, I wow. And so the second time around was a lot more uh uncomfortable, as I
yeah.
recall.
Whoa, yeah. Like it was, I had a new job at this point because I wanted better health benefits after going through what I went through.
Hmm.
So I switched to a new job, and it was really cool. It was a union job, and it had the best benefits in the world, like literally, like it was world renowned for having amazing health benefits. And even with that, and Medicaid and Medicare, I still ended up with $250,000 in medical bills after the second battle with cancer.
Yeah, I
Like,
remember
whew,
you had a fundraiser, which a lot of people came to
yeah,
pay for.
I raised a lot of money on that, and it helped me pay the bills for a couple months. My landlord gave me a couple months rent free. The people I worked with at this new job, even though they barely knew me, they all chipped in and donated some vacation and sick leave and money. And they had a vending machine fund that they would save for various things, and they pulled that together and gave it to me. Like everyone was super kind. Like I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for the kindness of others. You know?
Yeah. Oh, and that's awesome. I love hearing stories like that because I think, when the chips are down and somebody needs help, people rise to the occasion, and I think
Yeah.
most people are good and
This
want to
is,
help.
this was before GoFundMe was a thing, but it's
Yeah.
it's it's kind of funny. Like a lot of people diss on people who use GoFundMe. I mean, sure, there's some superfluous things that some people use it for, but
Yeah,
uh,
I'm trying to save up money to buy a prom dress or something like that. But
right. And I mean, if somebody wants to donate to that, that's their money. So whatever, like
sure.
why dig on it? But it's funny because I mean, it's just a fundraiser, and you know, even though it takes a lot of like putting your pride aside to do a regular old fundraiser, no one looks down on those. They think they're heartwarming things. So I don't know why everyone has a problem with GoFundMe, but
No, I think it's a good thing. It's totally the way to go about this. And I know that GoFundMe and some such sites have saved lives
oh
and
yeah,
benefited many, many people. I myself might have contributed to a few causes.
oh yeah, yeah, me too.
I think it's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So I, I have this new job, and I had just gone through this cancer. So I was like, oh, I'm not going to need that much time off of work. This will be easy peasy. I'll be through this in a breeze. And you know, I remember going to the doctor, my oncologist, and you know, he brought me in to give me the biopsy results or whatever to confirm that I did indeed have cancer again. And he uh, sat me down with my wife at the time, and said, yeah, you do have Hodgkin's lymphoma again. She burst out crying, and I just sat there like, fuck. Like
Yeah.
I went into like shutdown mode again. And you know, that's just kind of how I got through it. Is I just turned off all extraneous emotions, I guess you would say, and roboted my way through it as best I could.
Well, that's probably a pretty good way to go about it, considering the heavy emotions involved, you
I
know?
mean, it's got its drawbacks, but we can get to that later.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you're not somebody who's lived a full, long life. You're not like 70 and they're telling you have cancer. You were in your
Right.
20s at the time.
Yeah.
So you're essentially your life is just beginning. So that's a big thing to deal with.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sure there were a lot of people telling you you should do this, you should do that, you know, giving you all kinds of different ideas.
Yeah. I would get a lot of people saying like, oh, you know, big pharma, blah, blah, blah. You should try this natural remedy to get rid of cancer. And I looked into some of that stuff. And there was this, like, I think I've talked about this before, but there was a grape diet one where you
Huh.
just eat nothing all day, just drink water and stuff, and then eat a bunch of grapes. And that's it.
Interesting.
And the cancer, you know, cancer, you know, requires sugars to live. So the whole idea was that the cancer would like flock to the grapes or something.
Huh.
uh
I mean, I guess
Totally not founded in real science
n-
whatsoever, but
no. I mean, it would be nice if there was a naturopathic way to solve such things, because obviously chemo and radiation therapy is pretty heinous. Um,
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's pretty brutal, but you know, when you understand that it's just cells that kind of lost their genetic code to tell them when they need to die, so they just keep growing and multiplying. When you think about it like that, um, it's hard to come up with a plant or something that's going to alter your DNA in such a specific way to right that wrong. You
that's
know, like
true.
it's a really complex disease that varies quite a bit from cancer to cancer. And so, you know,
Wait a sec.
I won't bore people with that, but
Wait, hold on a second. What if cancer is the solution to eternal life? If
yeah.
cells don't die,
uh I've looked into stuff like that, like telomere length and things like that, that people probably don't want to hear about because it's boring biologist nerd stuff. Um,
I would. We could talk about it later, you know, but
yeah,
yeah.
but yeah. So this treatment that I thought was going to be really wussy, they laid it out for me like, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to give you staging chemotherapy, because what they wanted to do was to, shrink the tumor as much as possible, like obliterate as much of the cancer cells as they possibly could without damaging my own stem cells. And now these aren't like embryonic stem cells or whatever. These are adult stem cells.
Okay.
And where they come from in this particular scenario is from your white blood cells. Your white blood cells are responsible for, your immune system effectively.
Mm-hmm.
So by taking the stem cell, the precursor to any other immune cell in your body, including your bone marrow, you effectively have a not so invasive way of doing a bone marrow transplant. You just do it with cells, and you can do it with your own cells, which is called autologous, or you can do allogeneic from another person, but then you have graft versus host disease to worry about, and you have to take immunosuppressants for the rest of your life. I'm lucky I don't have to do that.
That's good.
Because I got my own cells. But they had to do this staging to carefully calculate how much of the cancer they were going to kill and how much of the stem cells they were going to kill, and time it just right so that they could harvest my stem cells, freeze them, and then kill me.
Mm-hmm.
Which
Wow.
is basically what they did. Because step 2 was the actual stem cell transplant itself, where they hit you with high dose chemotherapy. So in the Tandem one, it was just high dose chemo until my blood levels got to a certain point where they re-injected some of the stem cells and then let me recover for a little bit. And then the last part of the stem cell transplant was the real doozy.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one where they hit me with high dose chemo and full body radiation. Like,
man,
and we're not talking about like a little bit of radiation. It was 12 grays of radiation.
whoa.
And I believe 9 grays is enough to kill someone without intervention.
Yes.
9 to 15 or something like that, somewhere in that range. So I got a lethal dose of radiation, and I was no picnic.
No, I remember some of that. Yeah.
Yeah. God. Yeah, like just
wait a
the
minute.
stuff
This reminds me of something. I seem to recall that you were parked in the cancer patient parking spots, and somebody broke into your car and stole your stuff.
Yeah. How about that?
What? That's the lowest thing you could possibly do.
And at the time, here's the other kicker. So I'm in a clearly marked cancer patient spot, and they break in and steal my wallet and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, I was all effed up on Thorazine because one of the cancer drugs was giving me relentless hiccups, like 72 hours straight of violent hiccups. And I was like, please make it stop. And none of the drugs they were trying were working. And they were like, we're going to try some Thorazine. I was like, all right, just whatever. Just give me the Thorazine. So I'm like a zombie, like babbling to people about starting another business and find out my wallet gets stolen out of my car, and I'm on the phone trying to cancel credit cards, locked up on Thorazine.
Oh, Jesus.
I canceled my credit card. Somebody
Oh my God.
I would fall asleep like random. I had a bowl of hot soup in my hand, and I fell asleep, and it spilled all over me.
Oh, Jesus.
I got in the shower, and I managed to shower myself, and then I stepped out of the shower, and I looked down, and I just pissed all over my leg.
Oh, wow.
And then just got back in the shower, and like it was nothing. And
Oh, man.
Thorazine is bad drug.
Yeah, that is some hard stuff. I'm just glad that we can laugh about it now,
Mm-hmm.
and that it isn't some kind of sad thing where you didn't make it, because my mom didn't make it.
Yeah.
So to
Yeah.
me, cancer is a personal thing, and this is I think it's an important discussion, dealing
Yeah.
with this kind of thing.
And I always had the philosophy that you got to laugh at it because it's too hard not to, really. Like,
Yeah,
if you take it so seriously, you're only going to bum yourself out more. So, you might as well try to make light of it and decrease the negative effects that it has on you.
sure. And I think having a positive mood, staying positive and laughing at yourself and kind of looking at it in a mirthful way is probably a strategy for survival. Because if you get all down and negative and depressed, I think you've probably lost at that point.
Yeah. Um, you remember that? We should cut away to a clip. You remember the positron man? When
Oh yeah, yeah. If I still have that, I'll throw it in.
Yeah, I had so much radiation that you like busted out your Geiger counter and it was like.
And weren't the staff when you had that procedure done, they weren't worried at all? And I could detect you from 20-30 feet away. Like
Well,
you were you were hot at that point.
yeah. Well, the Geiger counter measures any radiation basically, and
Mhm.
there's a lot of
Yeah,
radiation that isn't actually harmful.
yeah, it wasn't gamma that was coming out of you, so
Yeah,
it's
but
probably
it
okay.
was still funny.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Now, if you had taken a reading of me after the radiation I got full body, that was gamma. So
Mhm.
that probably would have been kind of dangerous.
That'd be interesting. Yeah. Oh
But
man.
but that was like, I actually I've got some pictures here. Like, there weren't many pictures, but like this was when
Oh man.
all my hair fell out, including my eyelashes. So like the smallest amount of wind like hurt so bad. Like my eyeballs just instantly dried out. It was terrible. Like,
Oh,
I appreciate eyelashes now. Uh,
I remember that. And the photo is called eyelashless.
eyelashless, yes. And then like when I was in the hospital and like just laid up in the bed all the time, I got these horrid blisters. Like, if you have a queasy stomach, look away, because like these were my bloated legs. Now I've got chicken legs, right? And
Mhm.
these things are like the elephant man's legs almost. And you see these like blisters forming on the tops of my feet.
Oh yeah.
They ended up taking up like half my foot. They got
Wow.
huge. I couldn't wear shoes or slippers. I had to get like extra large slippers that had no top, basically,
Oh my
so I could
god.
wear them to like walk around outside until they went down on their own, because I couldn't lance them having no immune system to recover from.
Yeah.
And yeah, they were just horrid looking,
Oh
and
man. Wow.
and that was me
Oh,
all
I remember that.
bloated.
I remember that. Yep. Oh man.
Yeah, and
Gee.
then yeah, my skin was just like burnt from all the radiation and peeling off,
God.
and that's me like shortly after, like all
Mm,
skinny all of a sudden.
yeah.
So yeah, it was a nightmare, but yeah, it didn't even those pictures didn't even capture the worst of it. Like,
No, no. I remember some of that, and I've heard the stories, and actually, if any viewers have stories, uh, I think please share them.
Yeah.
It'd be good.
Yeah. I mean, now might be a good time to mention that I have a lot of those stories in my book, Beating
Yeah.
the Odds
Oh,
Without Any Gods.
just so happens I happen to have a copy too.
Oh, look at that.
What a coincidence.
Available now on Amazon. Uh, uh, but yeah, there's a lot of stories that go into kind of gory detail, but probably one of the worst was where I really got a strong appreciation for nurses was when I had mucositis, because when your immune system is gone and all the fast dividing cells have been obliterated by radiation and stuff, your mucus lining, it sheds entirely, so you have no mucus from mouth to anus.
Oh
and
God. Yeah.
and I couldn't talk or anything, and I kind of got this weird aphasia where I thought I was writing perfectly, but it was like hieroglyphics or something, and nobody could understand me because I couldn't talk and I couldn't write, and it was just really frustrating. But after that, the second stage of mucositis is an overproduction of mucus as
Oh boy.
your immune system starts to rebound and your cells start to divide again. So I had this tube in my mouth to like suck out the mucus constantly when I was awake. But when I was asleep, I couldn't just like have a tube in my mouth and sleep. So I would take the tube out and fall asleep for maybe a half an hour and be swallowing all that mucus. And then it would just rise up, and I would vomit, and it would just be these thick ropes of mucus.
Oh,
And this one night I had managed to sleep for maybe an hour or two, and I just had a lot of it in there, middle of the night. And my wife at the time, she was in the room sleeping in the chair. I don't know how she slept through it, but I was just violently retching. I ran over to a sink, and I was just leaned over the sink vomiting, and it wouldn't break, and I couldn't breathe, and it was like coming out of my nose, it was coming out of my mouth. There was no way I was going to be able to breathe, and it wouldn't stop, and I could feel it connected all the way to my stomach. I could feel it like as one unit. And
oh,
so I just all I could do was just start like pulling it out of my mouth, and I couldn't do it fast enough. I was like retching, and like blood vessels are bursting in my eye, and all of a sudden this nurse just busts in, doesn't even glove up, and he grabs onto the rope of mucus and he starts pulling with me, and finally we get it all out. And I was like, holy crap, dude, you just grabbed my puke and started pulling on it. Like, nurses are badasses. Like,
yeah.
nurses are awesome.
Mad respect right there. That is,
Yeah.
man. And as crazy as that story is, I don't want anybody to get the idea that that things are so awful that you shouldn't attempt some kind of treatment like that, because it does kind of
Right.
sound like the worst thing you could possibly go through.
Yeah.
But dying might be the worst thing.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, like for a few years after that treatment, I kind of thought to myself, if it comes back again and I got to go through that, but with like a donor's cells or something, like I kind of thought I wouldn't do it.
Well,
Like,
but and that kind of makes sense. By the time you've gone through the same shit 3 times, I think
yeah,
you've had
but
enough.
I've got a different outlook now.
Mm-hmm.
Circumstances have changed. My outlook has changed. I've matured and stuff.
Yeah.
And maybe it's far enough out of my memory that I just don't remember how terrible it was. But then that's why I wrote the book, so I wouldn't forget. So maybe I
Yeah.
just need to reread my book or something. But
Yeah, actually, now bringing up the book, why don't we go into that a little bit? Like, what prompted you to write that book?
so I wanted my memory kind of isn't what it used to be after the treatments and stuff. So I wanted to document everything that happened, Not that I think it was going to be a bestseller. Like anyone gives two shits what I went through, because who am I? But
Well, they should, but that's my
but I
opinion.
mean, I'm not like a celebrity or anything, so I wasn't expecting to get rich off of it, but I did want to make it available as kind of an inspiration to anyone that did stumble across it, or recommend it to someone going through something similar, because I also wanted to put a spin on it that I'd never seen before. You usually see these like down on your luck, tough diagnosis, sort of stories where somebody just leans on their faith, and they attribute all of their healing to their deity. And
Hmm.
I didn't see anything like that. That was an inspiring story built for uh, non-theist types of people, like atheists and agnostics and stuff like that. And myself being an atheist, I was like, well, I could take my point of view and what I was thinking through all of this and lay it out. Like, so I built each chapter to kind of pick one of the outlandish stories of the horrors that I went through, and relate it to a particular aspect of atheistic thinking.
Hmm.
um, or I don't even want to say atheistic thinking, but just thinking about that situation and how best to handle that situation from the point of view of thinking of it without faith.
Yeah, no, that makes
a,
sense.
a secular standpoint of how to get through a difficult situation. So I talk about perseverance, and I talk about the contemplation of suicide. I touch on some pretty heavy stuff, um, including, I even get into a little bit of like addiction and stuff, because uh, I thought that was kind of one of those things that could easily be a side effect of going through something difficult, is trying to rely on alcohol or a drug or something,
Yeah,
because there's definitely a huge depression that comes. There's PTSD that comes with going through that. Like, I've had flashbacks. Um, the few times that I've tried marijuana, like trying to mitigate some of the 24/7 pain that I'm in, uh, being a mild hallucinogen, mixing that with PTSD that is prone to flashbacks.
yeah.
Hallucinogens and flashbacks, maybe not such a good combination. So I was like writhing on the floor, thinking I had cancer again. I vomited. Like,
Wow.
it was pretty intense. But so like, I don't normally have those kinds of heavy emotional triggers from going through that trauma, but it does happen from time to time. So like things like that, a lot of people will either fall back on faith or fall back on a drug or whatever and self-medicate. And so those are a lot of the things that I went into. There are secular um, alternatives to AA, and I think we're going to eventually do an episode on that. But
Yeah.
uh that's basically what the gist of the book was kind of my angle on how to beat something difficult without feeling like you have to adopt religion into your life if it's not already there.
No, that's a like you said, I've never seen that before, so I think that's a great thing that you did, and hopefully it helps somebody, even if it helps one person in the future.
Yeah,
That's a good thing.
yeah. And it's
See,
and it's not, I mean, it's somewhat, I wrote it in a time when I was a little bit more of a militant atheist, and when I went back to edit it, I tried to tone it back a little bit. I didn't want to be super critical of religion, but there are a few parts where, yeah, I come down on it a little hard, but like one thing in particular is like people saying they'll pray for you, like when they know you're an atheist, is a little weird. It's like you're basically just washing over it or pretending I never said it or whatever. Um, and I go into some studies about, you know, the effectiveness of prayer and how it might actually hurt more than it helps and stuff like that. Um, there's some interesting studies there, but yeah, so there's a little bit of science, but I wrote it really in a digestible way. Because
Yeah,
I
it's a light read. It's not
yeah
too big of a book.
yeah. So yeah, I didn't want to like bore people to death, but I did want to have some data to back up some of the stuff that I was saying too. So.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it's a pretty good book. Little heavy on the atheism, but it's okay.
Yeah.
It's all right. To each their own,
Yeah.
And something like this isn't a common sort of thing because yeah, a lot of the books that you find out there how to deal with big things like dealing with cancer and stuff kind of go into that whole religious aspect and faith-based kind of things. And I mean, maybe for some people that's their thing, but if it isn't for you, what do you got? You know?
Yeah. And I suppose to some degree it could also help a religious person who's perhaps a caregiver for a non-religious person going through something difficult, like it might lend them a little understanding into the thought process and how best to comfort them, like for instance, a religious person, like I said, doesn't really think twice about whether or not it might be offensive to say, oh, I'll pray for you, because to most people it's not. And I mean, I don't even want to say it's necessarily offensive to me. I'm pretty hard to offend,
Yeah.
but it's still like a little, I don't know what the right word is. Like,
Well, it could be for some people though.
yeah,
So that
yeah.
has to be taken into consideration.
Like, it's not the most thoughtful thing you could do with
Yeah,
that knowledge. So, stuff like that, I think it really could be helpful for even religious people to read. Not that I'm trying to like convert them, because you do like whatever you believe is fine, but um,
exactly.
it's yeah, that was just my overall goal. And like I said, I have no delusions that it's going to make me rich or anything. I just put it out there because maybe it'll help even one person get through something difficult, and that's worth it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much why we do this channel and Kitchen Sink
Mm-hmm.
University. We're not expecting to make anything from this. It's a labor of love.
Yep.
And such is your book, I think. It's all about the effect, not the cash at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So
So you you mentioned that your mom died from cancer,
mhm.
and your mom was very religious. So uh I didn't get to see her much when she was going through that, if at all, even, I think. um didn't she kind of like become more of a homebody and just kind of like stay in a lot? And
Yeah, well, a lot of the time during that period was spent in hospitals and going
uh,
through treatment and stuff because originally it was an intestinal cancer
mm,
and there were a few surgeries and stuff. So she spent a lot of time in the hospital.
mm,
And then eventually, after multiple surgeries, the doctors determined that really there was nothing they could do. So um, she decided to stay at home. And probably this it was good that I had time to spend with her, but the saddest thing I think was that she was in the hospital over Christmas And I think it was probably after the new year, she came back to the house and we had a little Christmas celebration for her. And she's like, "Oh, hey, cool, it's Christmas." And, you know, we had to explain to her that Christmas had already happened. And she was kind of sad about that. But
Oh man.
yeah, that was bad. But I'm really happy that I had time, um, because a lot of people don't get that. Things
Yeah.
happen very, very fast, and you lose people without that kind of opportunity. So I'm grateful that I had that. Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, you're right. She was deeply, deeply religious, and I guess that gave her some sense of comfort. Um, because when you know that you're not going to make it, that's all you got, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for a lot of people, they can't really imagine what they would do without that piece in their life. And that's kind of what I tried to explain in the book as best I could, is like, what does an atheist think the meaning of life is and stuff like that. From my
Yeah,
perspective, I'm not trying to speak for all atheists by any means, but um, you know it's you really do have to sit and think about those things when you're fighting for your life.
yeah.
Is because I mean, I when I was in the hospital, I would go for little walks around the ward just to keep moving a little bit, and I saw people with way worse conditions than I was in, and I was pretty beat up. Um,
Yeah.
and I saw people dying, and um, it's fucking heavy, man. It's
It really is. I
it's awful. I've lost count of how many people I've lost to cancer, mostly friends and family,
Mhm.
and some of them were quick, some of them were very drawn out, years and years.
Wow.
Uh, some were painful, some weren't. Like it's really a mixed bag with cancer. You never know what you're gonna get.
Yeah, and with cancer or anything else, really, one thing we know for sure is if we're alive, we're going to die.
Yeah,
And facing that, I think, is probably the ultimate uh, situation that anybody has to go through. And especially if you face it more than one time,
yeah.
that's pretty. It's a pretty
But
big deal.
I think one of the philosophies that an atheist like myself has to get them through is that we don't expect anything after our life. This life is what we get, and we're going to fight tooth and nail to keep it going as long as we can. you
Yeah,
know that gives us a little bit of a drive. It gives us a little bit of motivation that um, I don't know that I want to say it is absent in a religious person, but I think it's a different version of the faith that drives them to keep going.
yeah, yeah. I think maybe in a religious context, you probably um, don't feel the need, like you don't necessarily have to fight to survive because there's something beyond. And in an atheist philosophy, there's nothing. So all you have is the life you led. I mean, that's what I think. Like, I want to leave a legacy. If I've left something, if I've made a difference, if I've changed the world in some small way, I feel like I could die and I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
Because you can't take it with you, and we're all going to die. unless cancer makes us live forever. Um, but that's the thing. And yeah, I'd be really interested to hear other people's points of view on this, particularly people who are religious, from different faiths, like what you feel about it, about death, about dealing with cancer and diseases and things like that, and different flavors of atheists, what you feel about it. Because I think everybody has kind of a different take on things, different motivations, and that kind of thing. It's all the sum total of your life experiences that yield that. So I think we get kind of a lot of different viewpoints there.
Yeah.
And what would you do if you were faced with death or a terminal illness or something like that? How do you deal with it?
Yeah.
Because I think there's going to be a lot of different opinions there.
Yeah. And yeah, I guess I should take a moment to give a shout out to caregivers too, because you lose a piece of your life when you devote so much of your time and energy and love to helping someone get through something like this.
Yeah.
My defense mechanism of shutting down emotionally to get through it was probably a huge detriment to my marriage, and a huge factor in why that ultimately ended. Certainly not the only factor, but um, it definitely played a very major role, and a lot of marriages don't make it through cancer,
No,
unfortunately. I think it's like a 50-50 thing,
yeah.
uh, which is really sad, because I think the divorce rate is already like 50-50, and then you throw cancer on top of that, and the odds kind of shift toward the negative on that.
Oh,
And
totally. Well, I
um,
mean, it's a very, very huge thing to deal with.
yeah, so
The
it's,
things you went through were crazy. So,
yeah,
yeah.
I needed 24/7 companionship. Like, my caregiver had to sign on to be with me for, around the clock, like,
And
in their line of sight that whole time.
yeah, that I completely respect the people who take that on, because these are people, a lot of those people die. So you're dealing with death all the time, suffering all the time, pain and turmoil and everything. And that's what you do for a living. So
Yeah. And
lots of,
my dad at the time was, part of the time, was my caregiver. Like, my mom, my dad, and my wife took shifts basically. And so my dad's trying to, you know in his age, is trying to take care of his son 24 hours a day, his adult son, 24
Mhm.
hours a day. And meanwhile, his dad was dying of cancer.
Oh my
So
God.
his dad and his son were both fighting for their lives. Uh, his dad did not win. I luckily did, but like, that had to be so much stress on him.
Oh man. Yeah. Oh Jesus. Yeah, your dad's a cool guy. Just saying.
Yeah,
He's a,
yeah,
he's a pretty cool guy.
yeah. Both my parents were amazing through that,
Yeah.
and my wife at the time was definitely, well, I don't want to say a godsend, because you know.
A little hard to say as an atheist, but well, the sentiment of such a statement. Yeah.
Right, right, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm all I gotta say is I'm glad he made it through, and hopefully it doesn't happen again, because
Yeah,
that would
cheers to
be,
that.
yeah. Exactly, man. And I would, I mean, I don't want to say that I love to hear stories, but I think it's important to talk about, and I would welcome other viewers' stories about going through the same kind of thing. If you've had a loved one or you yourself have gone through something, I think it's important to talk about it, because for the people that are actually going through it now, hearing the stories and how those people overcame adversity, you know, Casey's book, um, can give you a lot of hope. You know, you realize you're not alone. You're not the only person that's faced this and had to overcome it. And I think that goes, I don't want to say it goes a lot further than religion, but I think it's extremely valuable in overcoming those kinds of things.
Yeah, I would echo that sentiment, because a lot of people will ask me about what I went through and then immediately be like, but if you don't feel like talking about it, that's okay. And I'm like, no, I don't mind talking about it, because it is therapeutic.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's totally valid if a person doesn't feel like talking about it because they don't want to relive it or whatever. But uh, in my particular philosophy, I find it helpful, and I would encourage people to at least explore it to see if it feels right. And if it doesn't, you don't have to share, but it it might it might help you, but it will definitely help somebody else, if they
Yeah.
see what other people were thinking and how other people got through it.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's important to think about yourself and take care of yourself, but you gotta think about other people that telling those kinds of stories could help somebody else.
Yeah.
Because yeah, they may not have such things. Oh, and now my cat's showing up. Um, but yeah, I think that's a pretty good point to end on.
Yeah.
Um, Man, this is talking about cancer. Wow.
Yeah, it's one of the heavier ones we've done, but
Oh yeah.
I'm a little teary-eyed.
Yeah. That's
But
okay. That's okay. It's good. It's a good thing. I think these kinds of stories are good for people to hear,
yeah,
and I'm
like
sure
I
they'll.
I, I I didn't really get teary-eyed until I started talking about the people that I've lost. Like it doesn't phase me one bit with what I went through, but
Mhm.
losing other people and seeing that they didn't win the battle that I did.
Yeah, man. But you shouldn't lose hope. I think. Yeah.
Floyd
Floyd says
agreed.
it best. Floyd says, "Keep fighting." Oh, yeah.
But yeah, there's more stories like that in my book, and a little bit of positive vibes for the people that don't have faith in supernatural things. And
Yeah.
I guess that's probably
So
about.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. And thanks for deep sink diving with us.
And fuck cancer.
Fuck you, cancer. Yeah, I'm glad you won. Um, yeah, thanks for deep sink diving with us into the topic of cancer. Tell us your stories, and check out the song on the way out. Have a good night.
Yeah.